Welcome to yet another episode of MH Consultants Breakfast Banter. I'm Anita Menon and the host for this podcast, and with me I have my business partner Ron Howard, also the host on this podcast. And as a part of our investing series, we have yet another episode on how to invest safely for a salaried employee. So Ron is going to talk about property this time and how to invest safely in property.
Indeed I am. That's a very good introduction, a better introduction than I usually give on podcasts. I don't know why you always get me to do them.
I just keep this is a hidden talent.
Yeah, it's much better than me. So to remind you, this is part 2 of our investing series.
Yeah.
We were asked some time ago to advise a mid-level salaried employee how to invest without taking much risk. Part 1 dealt with investing in stocks and shares. Part 2 is this one in property, and part 3 will be A and other.
Yes.
So this is property.
Yeah.
Now, I won't ask what's for breakfast because I don't have any.
Only I have some breakfast.
You're going to be eating whatever that is while I'm giving this pod. What is it exactly?
It's an acai bowl.
Which means what to the uninitiated?
I really don't know how to explain what an acai bowl is, but it's very tasty. Can we go with that?
Well, you could say it's full of fruit, but I don't know what the brownie stuff is.
The brownie stuff is actually... It comes from Brazil, apparently.
Right, yeah, acai, right? A-C-A-I?
Acai.
Oh, acai. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I've learned something new already. Yeah. Okay, investing in property. So the first investment in property you would want is your own house, isn't it? Yeah. Once you, as expatriates, we're still likely to pay rent here. Bahrainis or ourselves at home. We want to get past the mortgage and have our own house. Is that an investment? Well, it can also be your biggest liability as well. True. But at least you have shelter. You're not going to be paying somebody rent. So I think that's the first hurdle. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't call it investing in rent. I mean investing in property. Mm-hmm. So what are the main aspects of renting? I'll get it right in a minute. Investing in property where you're renting it to someone else, to a tenant. Let's look at those. Okay. So the first 3 important aspects are location, location, location.
Of course.
We all know that, don't we?
Yeah.
You want to invest somewhere where rental property is in demand, in a good upcoming area. I used to own properties that were near a military base, so they're always, they're actually Marines moving in and out of the area. You could have one near universities where there are students. You want transient workers.
Right.
Yeah, turn your phone off. Huh?
It is off.
Right. Otherwise, you could get the best house, lovely house, good rent, but if nobody lives nearby, you're just not going to sell it.
True.
Even if you're in a good area, you want a nice apartment or house at a reasonable rent. I usually go slightly below the market because I'd like to keep my properties full. If I go at the market rate or above the market rate and I have 1 or 2 months without tenants, then overall I'm making less than if I just go below the market and my house is full for 12 months.
Right.
So take time on location, location, location.
And your advice is that when you give it off on rent, it should be slightly less than the market rate?
That's what I did. Others have been successful using other methods. Mm-hmm. But I've always gone slightly below, and I've found that my rental properties are full most of the time.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, You could pay for your investment properties 100% in cash. I don't mean actual cash, I mean everything's paid off. Why would you? When you could get a mortgage?
Yeah.
Because if you have a mortgage and somebody's renting, that rent pays off the mortgage. If you're lucky, it will pay off all of it. If it doesn't pay off all of it, you've just paid a small amount. So somebody pays for your loan.
Yeah.
If the amount you receive is much less than the loan repayment, we call that an alligator, because your money's being chewed up, you're still spending and not making much.
Okay.
So you don't want an alligator.
So that depends on the type of property also.
It also depends on the down payment.
So you have to negotiate something like
Yeah,
that.
because if it's an investment property, your down payment is likely to be higher than if it was your own property that you're mortgaging. So you could be looking at down payments 20-30%. So that's quite a big chunk of money, isn't it? And you need to do your maths there to see what percentage payment you want to put down, and then regards what the mortgage is on the rest of the property, and compare that to the rental income that you're going to get. But you do need quite a large amount of money for a down payment if you're going to do an investment property. Mine were 30% of the total, which is not a small amount.
And suppose you were to buy a property for yourself to stay in, is that also like a good investment?
No, for me to stay in, yeah. Well, I'm looking at my answers to that are from UK and American experiences. The down payment was around 10%, which is obviously a lot less than for an investment property. And the mortgage rate percentage is also lower on your own home than it is on an investment property.
So what is the advice? To buy the property for you also to stay?
No, I mean, you have to go with it. If you're going for investment properties, you're going to have to pay a higher rate of interest on the mortgage.
Do we have to demarcate that for the bank, that this is for me to stay in?
Well, they think there's a bigger risk because you're not living in it. You're having outsiders living in it. It's more difficult for the banks to get insurance on the property if it's not owner occupied.
Do you have to divulge that to the bank, that you're not going to stay in there?
Do you have to? Well, we are supposed to promote transparency in our business ethics, aren't we, and dealings and this podcast. So my answer to that would be yes. If you want me to answer your off podcast, that could be a different answer. And I'm kind of surprised you asked me that.
I don't know. I don't know much about it.
I actually did that once in the UK, and then for some reason I went to see the mortgage company, and they said, "So you're still renting?" And I didn't know they knew, and I thought, "Oh well, that's going to be a problem," but it wasn't. I think it would be now, because they maybe want some back interest off you. But if you want to take the risk, in UK there are also tax differences when you sell a house. If it's your own house that you've occupied for a period, it's tax-free.
Right.
If it's an investment property, you need to pay tax on it. If you haven't told them, maybe you don't have to pay tax on them.
Is it the same in Bahrain?
But there's no tax, is there?
Yeah.
There's no tax on selling your property here, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But if you've got a mortgage, well, that could be a problem.
So it's higher mortgage on investment.
So I'll not go down that road. Okay, that might be another podcast, but not with me in it. So that is a calculation one needs to make between what down payment can I afford or want to afford, what will the mortgage be on that, less what rents am I likely to get in. So I want my tenant to pay the greater part of my mortgage payments.
Right.
Now your mortgage payments could be capital and interest, or it could just be interest. Interest means you're just paying off the interest on the loan. You hope that your value of your property goes up, and then right when you sell it, that's when you pay off the whole mortgage. Capital and interest is you pay some of the capital off during each instalment. And again, that's a decision you have to make based on what you can afford.
Right. And what is the appreciation like in Bahrain? Is it dependent?
Dependent on the area. Seif parts of Jufair, pretty good. I have to say I'm seeing some deflation in some areas.
Okay.
But I'm not an expert on Bahraini property. I have some, but I'm certainly not an expert on it. So maybe we could get some real estate person in on that.
Definitely. And
but there is a lot of building going on,
yeah.
which increases the stock. So it's unlikely to be that property will go up because there is little supply.
Okay. And when you go to evaluate a property that you want to buy,
Yeah.
do you need to take somebody to evaluate it?
Well, when you buy properties here, I mean, I don't want to advertise, but one would normally go through Bahrain Property Finder,
Right.
and they have the prices there, and you can compare to prices in the same building or nearby villas. If you're buying a villa, get to negotiate a little bit. So the prices are not a secret.
Okay.
You might get a good bargain from an expatriate who, for example, is leaving soon. Around 2007 and 8 in Dubai, you could get lots of good deals because expatriates were having to leave very quickly. I'm not seeing that here. Of course, be very happy if I could make money off other people's misery, or if they're leaving and they need to sell cheaply, but
That's too
I
much.
haven't had that luck yet. No, but if I'm a cash buyer and that money's in the bank waiting, and you decide for whatever reason you have to leave Bahrain quickly, and you had a house, I could come in and boom, there it is. If I apply for a mortgage, it could take a month to 2 weeks to get that, which might be too long for you.
Yeah.
Right, so beyond that, there's something called the 1% rule, which I'll say, and I'll also say it doesn't really apply here, but I'll tell you why I brought it up. So if you buy a property, say, for 80,000 dinars here, you should be looking at rent of about 800 BD a month. That's the 1% rule.
Okay.
But since we don't have any tax here, I think you'd be happy to be receiving about 600 BD a month on an 80,000 property. That 1% rule is where there's tax, that you have to pay tax on your rental income. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's like in other countries like India or whatever, because I don't have experience of the property markets there. I'm sure there are lots of taxes in India on property,
Yes.
yeah. But that 1% rule is there. Maybe somewhere here it's like 0.75% rule. So your properties 60,000 dinars, you're probably looking at 450, 500 a month.
Okay.
That's a rule of
that
thumb.
makes sense, yes.
So you think about it when
Yeah.
when you go there. But again, that depends on demand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If there are a lot of properties available, I'd rather keep my property full and tenanted at a lower rent than have it empty for months and months.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then all I'm hoping for, well, when I have an investment property, I'm looking for two things, aren't I? Little bit of income, net income, and capital appreciation.
Right.
The same with stocks, except it's dividends and the increase in the stock.
Yeah.
So in both cases, I just don't know what the capital appreciation will be, do I? I don't know how much a property is going to go up year on year.
Does it depend on the type of property, for example, whether it's a villa? Is that something that's easier to sell versus an apartment and is easier to sell? What is a good property to invest in?
I think here I think apartments, because you're not going to get a good villa for less than about 180,000 BD. Can that move quickly? Can it move as quickly as a 60, 70,000 dinar apartment? I doubt it. And there are a lot of villas for sale up in the Deir al Muharrak area. We've spoken with our last guest, so they won't know who it is when this comes out, about buildings where he does advertising and elevators, and those apartments move very, very quickly.
Okay.
The ones that are on sale there, very difficult to get those.
So as an expat, it's always best and safer to invest in an apartment.
Well, I'll ask you, the most expatriates live in apartments. Yes. And expatriates are the ones that are going to be moving more, aren't they? Because they're not as stable as Bahraini families.
Right.
That's obvious, because most are only here for a certain number of years. So they don't think it's worth buying, because they're not here long enough. And do the banks give mortgages? Maybe not, if you're looking at only 5 years or so.
That's a big factor.
And of course, in Jaffa, you have a lot of American Navy that rent and like to be near the base.
Right.
Okay, so then we've got that one. And then you have a lot of costs, ongoing costs, when it comes to property, which you don't have on stock. On stock, you buy your shares, you sit on them,
And you sell it.
you get dividend or not. They might go down, you decide I'm not going to lose anymore, sell, otherwise you just sit on them and wait for them to increase in value. But you can't just have a property and nothing happens. You've got insurance. I think it's a good idea to insure your property against fire, flooding, that kind of thing. You might decide to use a management company to get your rent tenants in to collect the rent, because it's not easy collecting rent. So there's that cost. There's the homeowners association, because after a building has been up a few years, RERA, the regulatory authority for real estate, does require homeowners association. So those monthly fees. You've got repairs, renewals, upkeep. So you need to factor all those in, as well as your mortgage fees, if you have any, when you're calculating how much you could charge in rent. Now, in rent, you can't charge more than the market.
Yeah.
So these all you need to be aware of them all. With stocks, you have no cost. With property, you've got monthly cost. Property management, I use property managers. When I had properties in America, obviously I did, because I couldn't find tenants or collect rent. In Bahrain, I use property managers also, because I have a job. I have a business with you. I don't have time to be collecting rents and finding tenants. There are companies much better than I doing it.
Yeah.
That don't cost a lot.
How much? How do they take as a percentage of rent?
Well, they'll take the first month's rent plus VAT. So if your rent is 400 a month, you've lost 440.
And that's it?
No, that's not it. Because there'll be a percentage management fee every month after that, which can be anywhere between 2 and 5%.
For collection of rent?
For collection of rent, for dealing with the tenant, for agreeing and sorting out minor damages. So I will say this, everybody has their hand in your pocket. Insurance, management fee, you probably have to provide the internet, so you're paying the internet, TV,
for the furnished apartments.
furniture, because in the Emirates when you own a property and rent it out, it's usually unfurnished. In Bahrain, it's like 95% flats are furnished.
You can expect that.
So yes, so you're paying for that as well. You will give an allowance for IWA. So say 20, 30, 40 BD a month for IWA. So all that has to be added into your calculations of whether you're going to make any money or not. So yeah, everybody takes a little bit off you every month. But is it worth it? Using property managers, yes, I think so. But it might be a different experience for you if you want to find tenants, collect the rent, deal with the difficulties that tenants give you, complaining, maybe okay.
So this is all worth it when you sell the property?
We hope. There are other risks, low rents, of course, difficult tenants, because a lot of tenants don't treat your property as their home.
Yeah, they spoil it.
Yeah, and it could be remedial costs when they move out. In the West, it's difficult to evict tenants. It's not so difficult here. But there are a lot of risks. So why would you do it? Why would you do it? Well, you've said it. You hope that the capital... okay, we're one step back here. The net rent. So that's the rent less all these list of expenses I've given you, excluding the mortgage. You'd be lucky to come out with 7% return a year on the net rent without mortgage. Compare that to a dividend and it's probably higher. Of course, so then we're looking at capital appreciation, aren't we? Well, just with stocks, you don't really know whether property is going to increase in value, do you? You know over 10, 20 years it has. And that's what this mid-level salaried employee should be looking at that we're talking about here. We're not talking about flipping a property for this employee, are we? Which means buying a property and then selling it quickly for a quick profit. World's population is growing. The need, therefore, for shelter is growing. When I came here, Bahrain had something like 700,000 people living here. It now has 1.8 million. All of those need somewhere to live. When I came, there was no Amwaj, Dilmunia, Deir Al Muharrak, and various other parts of the island. So I don't know what's coming after, but if I'd have been able to buy a property when I first came, it would be worth a lot more now. Yeah. If I'd have bought a property 2-3 years ago, would it be worth a lot more now? Maybe not. But our advice here is always for long-term investment, isn't it?
And how do you know what you should sell it for? How do you calculate that?
Again, Bahrain Property Finder will give you all the answers, or an agent will give you the answer. An agent, you're going to be paying a percentage to. Somebody else that's got the hand in your pocket, you see. Even if an agent finds you a tenant, 1 month is gone. When you sell your property, a percentage is gone. So that's the way the market is, unfortunately. An agent will tell you what it's worth, and then you'll advertise it at more, because we're all greedy, aren't we? Huh? We'll try and get what we can. But as I said, I think I've said before, my experience of buying property has been more rewarding than buying stocks. I think that generally it's easier to buy a property and sit on it for 10, 15, 20 years and know it will go up than a stock, because many companies go bust. I mean, you can get the very large ones, Walmart, this and that have been there a long time and will be there a long time, but they'll not give you stellar performance, will they? If I'd have bought a property when Jaffa started, Reclaim, then think of the value now.
Yeah.
So if our mid-level salaried employee is expecting us to say, get stock or property, we're not going to say that. We're going to say, have diversification and have both.
Yeah.
Now, there is another area, the fixer-uppers. I used to have a property company in America where you buy, call it distressed property that needs some work doing on it, and obviously you spend money on it and then it's supposed to be worth a lot more afterwards. I don't really see that being available here.
Because most properties are
in
pretty good condition.
Yeah, pretty good condition.
Yeah.
I really don't see that's available here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There is another way to have exposure to property without buying property. That's real estate trusts, which is very much like buying stocks. A real estate trust itself invests in a lot of property, and so you're invested in that and you get the same appreciation that the trust does. So you don't own the property, it's like investing in a stock, but it's called a trust.
Okay.
But that's really investing in stock, isn't it?
It is.
So, I mean, that's it generally for property. If that mid-level salaried employee can come up with a reasonable down payment and get a mortgage, then the tenant will pay the mortgage. There might not be much income, but does that mid-level salaried employee need income? Maybe not, because they're getting salary.
Yeah.
They could look forward after 10, 15 years to selling that property, keeping it longer maybe, and passing it on to their children. But property's been a good investment, I think, particularly in parts of India.
Yeah, it's big over there.
So when are you going to buy your house? First house?
Hopefully very soon.
Right, okay, yeah. And
I've been a property owner previously.
I know, yeah.
And then I did sell it later on.
And was that a good decision?
Not particularly, because I sold it at a time when property was not doing that well in India.
Well, timing is important as well. I mean, so since 2000, there's been the year 2000. Property went down 2007, 8, 9 during the the Great Recession, as it was called.
Right.
Again during COVID. So if you end up selling at the wrong time, then you suffer.
That's true.
But what to do? So I think we're basically done on that. We're not saying to our employee, our mid-salaried employee, stocks or property.
They're just both great options.
Make sure they get their own house first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Buy your own house first. Because as long as you have a loan, you're working for the bank. You're not working for yourself on your own property, right? When it's an investment property, you're still working for the bank, but somebody else is paying off that loan for you. You got that?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but anyways, buy your own property for your own sake first.
Yeah. You've got somewhere where you go home to. You don't owe anything. Then nobody can bother you. Doesn't matter whether rents are going up or down, or interest rates are going up or down. You own that property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
That was a
Thank
great
you very
podcast.
much.
Thank you, Ron. Particularly personally for me as well.
Oh yeah. Anita, we'll keep an eye on her for when she buys her first property in a long time.
Hopefully. So, thank you so much, Ron. And as usual, you are such an expert at investing, and
I'm
you
not.
give such valuable insights. And personally, for me, it's been so great, being a part of this type of podcast. You can watch this on MH Consultants on YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Instagram at mhconsultants_Bahrain. Do share your queries about investing and investments. If you have any, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Anita Menon, and or you can share your queries on our Instagram at mhconsultants_Bahrain. We'll be very happy to answer them, and thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, and look out for part 3.
Yes.
Thank you.